In other news, we're watching for you the President of the United States, who, by the way, will be in Las Vegas on Wednesday. In Puerto Rico right now, Donald Trump landing a short while ago to assess the damage from Hurricane Maria. This after a week where he's traded barbs with local authorities who at times have felt abandoned by Washington in the wake of the storm flattening their island. There's also, he's supposed to also meet with the governor of the U.S. Virgin Islands.
There are no docks. There have been. We're just in the process.
In other news, we're following for you this Tuesday in the death in a Berlin hospital of the man who was a longtime powerful Kurdish leader who'd go on to be president after the fall of Saddam Hussein. Jalal Talabani was 83. After years of insurgency, he was seen as a calming figure, a unifying force amid the sectarian strife that followed the toppling of Saddam Hussein. For more, let's cross now to Simona Fulton, who joins us from the capital of Iraqi Kurdistan. Simona, you're there in the context of that independence referendum that Baghdad was against. Many believe that if Jalal Talabani had been in good health, there could have been compromise on that issue.
Well, it's certainly what some people within his Patriotic Union of Kurdistan party believe. Now, of course, there have been a lot of divisions within the PUK in the lead up to the referendum over whether the referendum should be held, in particular in disputed areas. Jalal Talabani had withdrawn from political and public life since he suffered a stroke in 2012, and since then there has been, in fact, somewhat of a leadership crisis within his party, which, of course, was also manifested in these divisions ahead of the independence referendum. So if you speak to some people within his party, they will say exactly that had he been around, he could have helped bridge some of these divides. He could have served as a unifying figure. Now, on the other hand, those who criticize his party for, in fact, poor governance and even corruption, they take a different view on that. They believe that the PUK has, in fact, become very similar to the ruling KDP party, and that, in fact, they are propagating many of these problems that today divide Kurdish society and Iraqi society.
Jalal Talabani, I remember when he was interviewed by France 24, and he criticized the decision to execute Saddam Hussein. How do you think he'll be remembered?
Well, he will certainly be remembered as one of the key political figures that have shaped contemporary Kurdistan alongside President Massoud Barzani. He founded the Patriotic Union of Kurdistan in the mid-70s and became, so to say, a pioneer of the Kurdish cause for independence. His party was always very much for autonomy and for independence, so that's certainly something that he will be remembered for. He was also the first Kurdish president of Iraq to serve between 2004 and 2015, and he was very much by some seen as somebody who can bridge the sectarian divides within Iraq. But of course, in the latter years especially, his party lost a lot of support, including in his hometown and stronghold Suleimania in Kurdistan. They basically were increasingly accused of being no different from the ruling party, that they were involved in corruption cases, that they were in fact monopolizing power within those parties and not really allowing democratic rule to take hold. So the critics will very much remember that as well. But for the most part, he will be remembered as a pioneer of Kurdish independence and autonomy, and as somebody who really shaped the past decades of Kurdish politics.
And also, he went from being an insurgent to, you could say, a master of soft power. His address book was certainly full.
Yes, of course. I mean, he is somebody that really defined Kurdish politics. You know, it's if you even though he withdrew from political and public life in the last few years, everywhere you go, you find people referring to him as Mam Jalal, which basically means Uncle Jalal. So he was very much somebody who was very present in Kurdish society, and he is remembered by members of his own party as somebody who was, very charismatic on one hand, but also very simple and down to earth. When you speak to people who have heard him speak, for example, members of the Peshmerga or members of his party, they describe him as a very accessible man. So he was certainly somebody who reached out to a lot of people, who was very well connected within Kurdistan, within Iraq, but of course also in neighboring countries, especially Iran, which is traditionally a country that is seen as very close to the PUK.
Simona Fulton, many thanks for that update from Erbil after the passing of Jalal Talabani at the age of 83 in a Berlin hospital. Stay with us. There's more to come. We'll have more news, plus the day's business and sports. You're watching France 24.